Well, the issue that I have and that many of us have is that we're tired of it being the same old problems over and over and over again. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to make a quick video in response to this Benediction's criticism of big content creators, which is not me, but I tend to share their viewpoints, and I would like to voice my response to his contention that it's unfair to criticize the developers when the leagues come out and we don't give them a chance to fix things and this and that and the other thing. And it's like, yeah, I understand what you're trying to say, but and you know, when PoE first released, and then after Dawn of the Hunt and all of that stuff first released, we didn't really have enough of a pattern to really get angry with the developers because of the things that are happening. Because, you know, when the game first came out, obviously there's going to be problems and different people are going to have different issues with this and that and the other thing. And then Dawn of the Hunt, and you give them a pass on that because it's the first time things comes out. Then Dawn of the Hunt comes out, and the changes that they made to the game made the game really hard again after they went through in the first patch, in the initial release, to try to like tune things back and make the bosses reasonably easy to fight and make the monsters reasonably easier to fight, you know, to where it's still a challenge, but not, you know, bashing your head up against a wall of a challenge. And then, you know, they release Dawn of the Hunt and it goes back to being kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. And then you're like, what the fuck, dude? I thought we fixed these problems already, these balance issues. And then they finally, you know, they adjust things again and things become a little bit easier to deal with. And then here we are again in the third patch, the Third Edict. And you go getting through the first three acts of the campaign, which have typically, you know, for me who has gone through it many times at this point, should just be pretty much muscle memory. It's hard again. It's difficult again. I'm bashing my head up against fucking Count Geonor again. I mean, I'm sorry. I understand where you're coming from, and generally I would agree with you that, you know, not shitting on the game and not shitting on the developers is the way to go. But after 3 straight new sessions in a row, it's clear that they're not learning their lessons about what the game needs to be. Now, yes, do some of us have a certain desire for Path of Exile 2 to basically be Path of Exile 1 with updated graphics and updated mechanics and a more action-oriented and that kind of gameplay? Sure, I'll admit that I have some bias towards that, but at the same time, it is supposed to be an action RPG, and it's kind of frustrating when the RPG part of it kind of sucks. I mean, it leans too heavily into the action side of it and not far enough into the RPG side of it. And the problem is that another continuing issue that we have going into all of this is just the fact that gear is always such a fucking pain in the ass to find, especially during league starts. I made in my review, my first impressions review that I did, I showed you guys the runes that I have in my inventory after going through the playthrough. I think I have like 8 runes in there, and I used maybe 3 of them during the campaign. I'm going through the campaign and I can't even find resistance runes to buff my resistances. I had to wait until I got to Act 4 before I finally had all of my resistances over 30%. There's nothing I can do if I'm not getting the gear. And this is an issue we've had since the day 1 launch of the game. In every single release that we've had, gear drops have been an issue because they don't want to have to worry about a loot filter. So what does that end up doing? It ends up screwing over those of us who get dicked over by the RNG dildo. What do you want from us? I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I generally try to, you know, maintain a somewhat professional outlook on things, and I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I understand that, you know, developers have it hard. They're trying to come up with things. And I do agree that this is a masterpiece of a game. But at some point when you see a continuing problem like people struggling with boss fights that are way overtuned and have way too much going on, and the expectation of the design is that you're supposed to have to fight the boss 10 times to learn the mechanics rather than it just being a fight that, you know, has mechanics that you can beat the first time through with a reasonable build, that's a bad design decision. I'm sorry. And they continue to stick to that. They refuse to move off of it. And those of us who are tired of dealing with it are just kind of over it by now. And the fact that gear is so rare for some of us, I mean, maybe you are lucky and you're getting all this, you know, gear and currency and all this stuff is just raining down from the sky. But for me, every single league that I've done so far, I'm struggling to find just basic stuff. Like, currency generally tends to be kind of okay, but I end up having to trade for runes, and I end up having to trade for armor fragments, and I end up having to trade for this and trade for that, and like the currency exchange for all of this stuff, because it just doesn't drop for me. I end up having to take a bunch of chaos orbs and just port that into runes and port it into armor stuff and port it into, you know, the different things that I need, because the gear, the items, the currency itself is just not dropping for me. Even in maps, I'm not getting runes. I almost never get runes in maps, like ever. So I understand, you know, people who want to have a more, people who want content creators to have a more reasonable outlook on the game. But for some of us, this isn't an isolated thing. It's a continuing progression of the same issues over and over again, because the developers don't want to make fundamental changes in the way that the game works, because they're afraid that we're just going to become too overpowered. And their design philosophy is they would rather make it harder at first and then slowly dial back the difficulty than to make it really super easy and then make it harder and piss people off who liked it when it was super easy. Either way, you're going to piss people off, because people like me, I don't like it just being ridiculously hard and ridiculously scarce and having to like fight tooth and nail for every little thing that I get. Because this video gaming is supposed to, I'm a casual player. Video gaming is supposed to be a release, right? I am a content creator, but I'm also a casual gamer. I fall into that category of people who don't spend 12 hours a day hardcore grinding on this stuff. And when I play the game, I want it to be fun. And it's not fun when you're not getting the gear you need, when you're not getting the currency you need, when the boss fights are tuned within an inch of your life and you just can't, you have to fight it. Like, I've had multiple bosses that I had to fight 15 or 20 times just to get a lucky RNG roll from their mechanics to not get one-shotted by something. Like, it's the same problems over and over again. And while I know that some of the content creators are out there just farming hate because it gets them a lot of views, people like me are just tired and frustrated with the same problems every league over and over and over again. We're tired of it. We're just really tired of it. So, should content creators stop giving GGG shit for the problems that we run into every time we have a league start? No, because they need to fix the actual fundamental problems that are causing people to get pissed off in the first place. These are legitimate issues, and they're problems now, they're legitimate problems now that should continue to be shit on, because they've been the same problems from the beginning that just never get fixed because the developers don't want to risk making the game too easy. And I'm sorry, if you want casuals to play, and they need casuals to play so that casuals will spend money on the microtransactions, then they have to cater the game to a slightly more casual crowd. It can't be just for the hardcore guys. It's got to be approachable by the casuals. Yes, the game is super popular. That's fine. I get it. People are continuing to play hoping that it's going to remain, it's going to get to a level where it's going to be fun. But a fun gameplay experience is not beating your head against the wall over and over again, especially for those of us who tend to be on the lower end of the luck spectrum. It really, really sucks, and it really, really needs to be fixed. And so, you know, it is what it is. So I just wanted to make a quick response to that. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, and if people aren't raising hell over the issues, then the developers aren't going to have any kind of a sense of urgency to fix it. The reason why Dawn of the Hunt had patches that came in is because the big content creators went on a tirade and said, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" Right? And then after that, we got patches. If the big content creators didn't say anything, I guarantee you we'd still have the same problems that were at the beginning of the league. It's because the big content creators are shining a spotlight on the problems, and then the problems get fixed. That's the way it goes. So while I understand your opinion, I strongly disagree with it, because you need to bring the issues up. We're not here to talk about how great the good stuff is. The good stuff is the good stuff. You do the good stuff. The content creators aren't here to sell the game for GGG. They're here to make content. And if they think that something sucks and they want to bring something up, it's not on them to point out the highlights of the game. It's on them to talk about the experience that they had. And if they had a negative experience, they're going to talk about their negative experience. And if someone else had a positive experience, they're going to talk about a positive experience. So criticizing content creators for talking about their experience and making a big deal out of things that piss them off, some of us are more positive and some of us are more negative. I fall on the more negative end of the scale a lot of the times, and I'm going to point out the bullshit when I see it. It's the way that it goes. So thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers, join as a member for early access to videos, or just leave a tip with that thanks button. I also have PayPal and Patreon links. So I will see you guys for the next one.